Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to the new Brit workshop. We're back in action with the Inventables X-Carve small CNC machine. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to go about installing the Dewalt 26000 series writer in the machine. Now this is an important step because in my view the low voltage spindles that you might otherwise get with the X-Carve machine aren't really man enough to tackle serious CNC work. But with the Dewalt 26000 you're going to be able to produce some fine results. Now when changing over the motor units, the first thing I'm going to do is to disconnect the power leads for the motor which came with the X-Carve. It's just two connectors just here, and that's those disconnected. Now there are four fixing points, two on this side and two on this side for the motor mounting plate, and you can see that those are these four here on this plate. And the way to go about this is remove the motor first and then undo the two screws which are here, which hold the motor mounting block onto the thread here. So that means that this can move independently now. And what I've done is I've undone the bottom one on the right hand side first, and I've just loosened the top one, and that then can come away completely. And this now leaves me free to transfer these rollers onto the new mounting bracket for the Dewalt. And this is also a good time just to clean up these little rollers to get the dust out. So that's those two. Now you may have noticed this piece of wood. Now if you're not already aware that this bracket for the Dewalt is a little bit tight on the body of the Dewalt, and so this piece of wood is 5mm thick. I've forced it in this gap here and that prizes this open enough so that the Dewalt runs smoothly in and out. There we go. You can see now that will go in very easily. So having done that, I can now start looking at the other mounting. So I can fix the bottom eccentric nut and with its pulley on like so. I'll just nip it up reasonably tight, but not absolutely tight. Now with those three in position, I can now feed this on like so, and I can now refit the screws that go into the block. However, what you do need to note is that the thickness of the bracket for the old motor is much less than the thickness for the new motor, and supplied with this kit are some longer screws. And you can see this is the original screw here, and this is the newly supplied screw. So they're longer, and you need to make sure you use these when fitting this new Dewalt bracket. So I'm getting them both just nipped up. When they're both nipped up, I can then complete the process by tightening it the rest of the way. Right, that's that fitted. Now the final point now is to do this last pulley with its eccentric nut. Right, I now need to adjust these eccentric nuts so that these pulleys are just binding, and that's a simple process. I've got the Allen key at the back. I'm going to adjust this a little so it's just starting to be tight. And when that's just right, tighten it up. And now we need to check this bottom one. Now you may recall that these little bolts here require a hex key to be fitted to them. However, this one here is almost inaccessible unless you cut a hex key short, and that's what I've done here. So this is a shortened hex key, and that allows me to get in there and attach this to the end of that bolt. So the bracket is firmly fixed back in place, and now I can introduce the Dewalt router. Now the orientation of this is important because there is a risk of this part here fouling the upper part of the router, and so you need to place this down carefully and just make a judgment. And in my case it's offset by about 45 degrees from what would be considered to be that position. It's about 45 degrees, and that gives clearance at the back for this plate here, and I can check that shortly. Now that's down as far as it needs to go, and I can now remove my piece of wood, and that's gripping it a little bit more tightly, and there are some screws to go in here. Now before I tighten this up so it's fixed in place, I want to check the movement of this carriage. Now what I want to do is to check that this carriage can go up and down freely, and so what I've done is I've put one of my longest cutters in there, and I'm now going to replicate a normal cutting situation. I've got a backing board, sacrificial board, which will protect my work surface, and about the maximum thickness of material I expect to be cutting on this machine is 18 millimeters, so that's representing that. What I want to do is make sure there is sufficient clearance here for the tool to move safely, and then I'm going to try doing some test movements of this before I do the final tighten up to make sure it's all safe. And if there is any risk of fouling, then I may have to adjust this limit switch here so that it comes into operation sooner. But I'm just going to do some tests now using the UGCS software to move the carriage up and down. I've just moved it to the home position, and actually there is clearance between this casing and this body, but it is something that you need to check very carefully. The cooling air for this motor goes through the top and then out through the bottom. So on a CNC you're going to end up with dust going everywhere. So it's pretty important to have some form of dust boot. Right, the Dewalt router is now fitted as I wish it to be. I've put the prototype dust boot on just here. I've got a cutter in, and I've connected up my hose. Now, because of the way this router is going to work, because its mains connected, I've got it such that I can switch it on and off with this remote control switch, and at the same time my extractor starts up. Now separately, the controls for the X-Carve are exactly the same, and they're being controlled by the computer here. And I'm now going to set it up so that it repeats one of those cuts I did earlier when I was making the prototype dust boot. I first of all started off the homing sequence with the $H command under UGCS, and it's taking the machine to the limit here. And now I'm going to set up the home position for this piece of work. And now I'm just going to give the home for this job command, which is the G92 X0 Y0 Z0. That's done. I'm now going to load the file. I'm now going to start the router. And now I'm going to start the file. I'm just checking for any excess vibration here. And that really is very good. I'm very pleased with that. There's no juddering. Now my prototype dust boot is only just starting to make contact with the surface now, so it's had 2 passes without being fully in contact, but the dust that had been flying off before is now contained much closer to the centre of the workpiece. I've just broken out that little piece. It was held on with just a few hairs. You can see them there. And the reason I stopped the process early was that I didn't want this rattling around and causing an accident. If you're doing this type of work ordinarily, you would leave a little tab in 1 or 2 places to hold that in place, or secure this from underneath by screwing a screw in through the sacrificial piece up into somewhere near the middle. But anyway, it proves the point that Dewalt router is absolutely perfect. It really has made this machine come to life, because that low voltage DC spindle that came with the machine was really not man enough to tackle serious work like this. Right, I've now used the prototype in order to make a slightly better shape for the dust trowel, which I think I'll probably use probably for the foreseeable future. Now, in doing all of this, I must tell you that the Dewalt router has made a complete difference to the way that the X-Carve works. That old motor, which I've got here, frankly, vibrated so much when I tried to do anything serious with it that I thought, well, sooner or later, either it's going to damage itself or the rest of the X-Carve is going to get damaged. So I'm really glad that I've switched over to the Dewalt. Well, I'm going to finish off my final version of my dust boot now, taking some of the parts from the old one, and I'll then be able to get on with some more interesting work with the X-Carve. Now, there's several points that I learned as I went along. I didn't mention them all. The first thing was I hadn't used the X-Carve for quite a few weeks now, and therefore before I started to use it, I went round and checked the belt tensions, and I also checked the adjustable rollers to make sure their tension was correct. So that was the first thing. The next thing I would recommend to you is that don't stick with the DC spindle that comes with the X-Carve. Go straight for the Dewalt with its proper mounting plate. It really does make a superb difference. And there's my first job with it, and I'm really pleased. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.